conservation. It is. So you didn't know that, but that's okay. PV equals nRT is the general gas equation, also referred to as the ideal gas law. In the ideal gas law is not a law of physics. It's basically an extrapolation of the law of conservation of energy. So based on our concept of the law of conservation of energy, we can extrapolate this equation for how gas molecules interact under ideal conditions, the way that their energetic boundaries interact with each other when they interact. But when they don't interact with each other, when there's gas not interacting with another gas, let's say it's just orbiting around the planet. Let's say there's 1 million acres of gas around a hydrogen gas ion, or not it's just a hydrogen, just a hydrogen gas ion. That's why it's ionized. It's just like a single gas atom, right? It's a gaseous state. It's a atom of hydrogen. It's orbiting around the planet. I know maybe you don't believe in orbits or something, but in this scenario, it's just surrounded by no other gas. There's nothing around it for 1,000 miles. The ideal gas law is not coming into play because there's no interaction with other molecules. So it's just
because
chilling.
There's not a container. It's not a closed system. I just said in all closed systems, right? If you are in an open system, the gas is naturally diffuse and there's nothing for it to build pressure against. Pressure is built against a surface.
I said to you yesterday that the pressure is building against the surface of the Earth.
And then
that's the end.
So do you have any, other than reifying the Earth and saying gravity is a container somehow, do you have any actual demonstrable evidence, a single experiment in the history of mankind in which I can have a bowl without a lid and create continuous pressure and a gradient from the bottom of the bowl to the top, like we see a continuous gradient on Earth without a lid on it?
A bowl with a lid with a gradient of pressure.
If we take the lid off, right, and we try to add pressure to it, and I'm not talking about atmospheric pressure, because if you put the bowl inside of the atmosphere, you have to treat it as if it's all the same. So we want to talk about like a vacuum, right? Take a vacuum chamber, place a bowl inside the vacuum chamber, spray gas into the bowl, right? We don't put a lid on it and expect there to be a linear vertical gradient of gas in the bowl with no lid.
I don't know how you could do that. Maybe you could. I don't know. Has that never been tried?
The
heaviest gas is radon, a radioactive gas. So if we took 1 atom of radon and we were in a vacuum chamber and we had a bowl and then we dropped that atom into the bowl somehow, you're saying it wouldn't settle into the bowl?
I said create a gradient of gas in the bowl.
Okay, and then you have hydrogen as well. So you have enough for an inch of radon and an inch of hydrogen, and you're saying they wouldn't separate and the hydrogen wouldn't float on the radon?
I'm saying that the gas would be spread throughout the entire vacuum chamber, not just the bowl.
So it would be everywhere.
Yeah, not just the bowl, because unless you put a lid on the bowl, it's not going to create a gradient in the bowl. It's going to create a gradient in the chamber.
So why doesn't that happen in a vacuum?
Well, this is a vacuum I'm talking about.
If I give you a plasma discharge tube, have you checked out a plasma discharge tube experiment?
You mean like a cathode ray tube, like a CRT television, or like J.J. Thomson 1897?
Yeah, sure. You understand in there that it's not everywhere. The atoms they line up.
Well, that's a totally that's where we observe a cathode ray beam of pure electricity, right? Which you would say is plasma. I mean, sure, fair enough, it's plasma, but I would say that actually is pointing to not matter. Like that, matter was reified upon that. Electrons were reified upon that experiment as particles, even though the mass was just artificially injected into that equation. He happened to use the force equations and energy equations that incorporated mass and imposed them upon it. He didn't measure the mass. He just created an artificial energy to mass or a charge to mass ratio of what it would be if it was made of matter. I personally don't believe that electricity is made of particles.
I'm a little confused because, like you don't deny that things go down, like they accelerate down, and you say there's
absolutely.
Maybe you say it's because of density and buoyancy, and maybe there's like an electric thing making that happen, right? What do you call that?
Yeah, I think the Earth is like a giant capacitor, and so this voltage gradient is what creates the downward bias. I think the positively charged
Does
plate
and
above us is pushing everything down.
does that work on gas? Gas doesn't get affected
Yeah,
by that?
yeah, it works on everything. It will create so there will be a like a charge to mass ratio that everything is affected as inside
So
of an
even in
electric
your
field.
scenario without gravity, there's still that downward electric gradient that would still be pushing the more dense, heavier molecules of radon below the hydrogen in that closed system. If we introduced a very sparse amount, you would, even in your theory, there would still be a gradient because of the downward
But
electric
I
charge.
have a closed system. Like that's what I'm telling you. There's a lid on my container. That's the difference between like our two scenarios. I'm telling you,
But
if you
the
take
but
away
the
the
lid
lid
on Earth, dog, is to keep the other atmosphere away.
in the vacuum chamber, right? If you just stick a bowl in a vacuum, the vacuum chamber is space and the bowl is Earth. If I spray gas into the bowl without putting a lid on it, it's not just going to stay in the bowl, it's going to spread out throughout the whole vacuum chamber. And the gradient is
Even
not
if
going
the
to be a
chamber is 1,000,000 miles wide and 1,000,000 miles tall.
yes, it's even more so
And
it's going to
and if
spread
you
out.
put 5 molecules of hydrogen, they're gonna fill the whole chamber?
They're going to start spreading out throughout the chamber. They're not going to sit in the bowl. Correct.
But everywhere you go in that chamber that's 1,000,000 by 1,000,000 miles, you're gonna sense hydrogen, even if there's only 5
No,
atoms in there.
no, you're not
So
going to
then
sense
they're
it
not
everywhere.
spreading out in the whole thing. They're
Bro,
somewhere and not somewhere
are,
else.
I'm so okay. Yeah, I don't know what you want from me. Like you're wanting me to say that the hydrogen molecules would spread out infinitely, even though there's a finite number of them.
Yeah, I'm
The
saying a
point is they're
finite
spreading.
number, very
Point is
low,
they're
very
spreading out,
I'm
dog.
saying in a near vacuum chamber, a tiny bit of gas in a gigantic chamber, wouldn't your downward electric force gradient cause them to go to the bottom of the chamber?
If there's nothing else at all inside the entire chamber, they're still not going to go just to the bottom.
They're gonna go to the top 2,
They're going to
1,000,000 miles
spread
up?
out. They're going to seek equilibrium throughout the chamber.
Right, just like the ocean seeks equilibrium in the sea
Uh,
at the bottom.
okay, dog. Like, what is okay? Well, like you're asking me about something we can actually test, and that's why I'm confused. Like, if we really get a vacuum chamber right now and we spray gas in it, dog, you don't find the gas on the bottom. Like, it will diffuse throughout the chamber, and it's currently present on Earth in Earth's field.
I
Whether you
just
want to
asked
say
you,
it's a
how big is
gravitational
the
field,
chamber?
it doesn't matter. Any size chamber, this will
So
happen. It will
1,000,000
spread
miles by
out.
1,000,000 miles, the gas will be everywhere in the chamber.
A foot by a foot, 1,000,000 miles by 1,000,000 miles, you will feel you will, however many gas molecules there are, you will find them scattered, distributed throughout the chamber. Not at every point, because if it's a big enough chamber and there's not enough gas, there's not enough gas to fill every point, but still
So
it will
there's
be
gonna be some
spread.
empty space
Y- Yeah, dude, I'm
with
not
no
yes.
gas.
There's going to be some empty space. Yeah, of course there
So
would have to be. I don't
where will the gas be? If it's
wherever it goes, like at each
where
individual
will
point
it
that the
go?
gas goes to. Dude, is anybody else finding this
It'll
hard to?
pool at the bottom.
No, it won't.
I
It'll
mean,
pool at the top.
it's still kind of similar because at the end of the day, you're still having to demonstrate this within a container. So it's just like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but what's the difference between okay, if I have 5
you're like
gas molecules and
simulate the universe and show me. It's like
no,
and do it on
it
Earth with a little
bro,
box.
if I get a little box on a desk in a lab at 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot vacuum chamber, and I put 5 molecules of gas in there, there's gonna be a ton of empty space.
Yeah.
But you're not only gonna find gas molecules on the floor of the box, you're gonna find them at random locations throughout the box. That's how it works. You are assuming that it would just need to get sucked to the bottom. I'm telling you that's not what happens. Like, that's not reality. That's just not what it is. I don't know what other answer to tell you.
Can you show me that? I mean, you're stating
I
that it's the case. Can you show me where that's been proved?
Okay, okay. This is what I'll say. I don't have a citation on hand to just pull out and show
All right,
you
so it's
that
your
where
hypothetical
well,
versus
let me
mine.
let me finish. Let me finish. I don't have a citation on hand to just pull out and show you because it's to me it's kind of a silly question because I know how it works already. However, if you go spend 5 minutes on a Google search, you will find a plethora of information to tell you that in a vacuum chamber, if you put gas into it, the gas will diffuse. It doesn't fall to the
If
bottom,
you
it
spend
diffuses.
5 minutes on a Google search, you find that the definition of the ideal gas law is that it's also known as the general gas equation. It's the equation of a state of a hypothetical ideal gas. It is a good approximation of the behavior of many gases under many conditions, although it has several limitations. It's like this is not something that's universal, and this is what gas always does in all circumstances, regardless of pressure, regardless of energy. It's just an ideal gas law for normal conditions of pressurized gas at normal temperatures. That's where the ideal gas law applies. And then you want to tell me what's going to happen on the moon.
Yeah,
And
I
you
already
can't demonstrate that.
I already none of us
You
can
can't demonstrate your claim.
Yeah.
That's what we're at.
On the ideal gas law, real quick though, before we
No, but you're
lose the
using
point.
it as a
Hold on.
debunk for
Wait.
atmosphere, and that's
Let
not
me-
valid. That's you can't
I'm
make
not
that.
stepping on your toes, man. Let me finish. So
I'm
I already
responding to
explained.
him. He jumped in. I just responded to him.
I got you. Okay. On the PV equals nRT though, I already explained that just that, like if I copy it exactly like that, PV equals nRT, like exactly. No, that by itself doesn't perfectly describe every gas because as I said before, in reality you have to add a couple of extra terms for the intermolecular and van der Waals forces. And if it's not a homogeneous gas, you have to treat one single term for each gas based on each gas that's in there because each of them has its
Yeah,
own.
I'll grant you those, but those aren't the only limitations.
But that's still in the form of PV equals nRT. It just has terms added. It doesn't mean it's no longer the ideal gas law. We still call it the ideal gas law. You can call it the ideal gas law with modifications if you want, but it doesn't invalidate the whole framework about how we treat gases. There's no other way.
No, this
that
is how we
gases.
treat gases under normal conditions. It's an approximation. It's a mathematical equation that generally holds up in many circumstances, but it's not a universally applicable law of physical reality. It's just describing the energetic relations between gases that are colliding with each other. That's why the van der Waals forces come into play. But in a vacuum or even near vacuum, where you get gases that are not colliding with each other, the PV equals nRT, you end up with no end.
It also requires a closed system, as I've said many times.
Exactly. So only in a closed system can you apply PV equals
and a
nRT.
rock in the vacuum of empty space is not a closed system.
Which is why this breaks down once you leave the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's my point, because if you can't use that equation, you can no longer build pressure to create an atmosphere.
And that's why you end up at a place where there is no atmosphere and no pressure.
You would never get an atmosphere at all to begin with in the first place, is my point.
That's like saying you would never get an ocean at all because if there was a boundary at the top of it where it stopped being liquid. That's the same thing. At the top of the ocean, you have
because liquids
change
behave
in the
completely
gradient.
different. Liquids behave completely different than gases do.
Liquid is a different phase, so there's a different way that they relate.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't diffuse.
It's a good and it's a fair analogy. What I just made is a totally applicable analogy.
Diffusion.
You are in a sea of gas.
Diffusion is a unique property of gases. Liquids and solids do not experience diffusion. Therefore, they collect and fall to the bottom. So you can put the water on the rock and the water can, under your model, whatever, fall to the bottom and collect on top of itself.
But with gases do collect and fall to the bottom. They absolutely do.
We're talking about before there was an atmosphere.
You ever been on a golf course?
Tried to create one.
You ever been on a golf course at the end of the day and you walk into the low part of the golf course? It's cold down there. And then you walk up on a hill and it's warmer. It's because the cold gas pools at the bottom.
I don't know what else you're looking for from me. I've explained it to you, man. I mean, if you don't want to accept
I just explained to you
that
ideal gas law does not apply to a near vacuum scenario. It breaks down and then you enter into plasmic states. Just as in the same way at the edge of the ocean, you enter into a gaseous state.
Which in terms of relating to the original creation of an atmosphere in the first place is a non sequitur. But I don't, like I said, I don't know what else you want me to tell you. I've laid out my case. It's fine if you disagree, but I've given you the information. There's not really much else for me to say on this topic. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I just Debunked. Ions can absolutely contribute to pressure buildup. The ionic gases at the top of our atmosphere can build pressure downward and still stay ions that are not having a normal PV equals nRT interaction. There's a gradient that goes up to near vacuum, and then everything changes at that state. And the generally applicable rule of thumb equation that we use for gases in a pressurized container do not apply the same at a near vacuum state.
So did you tell me that you just found this out last night after talking to us? You went and read for 45 minutes about it.
I went and read.
Out that
yeah, literally, it's that easy.
Yeah, and so now you're coming in here to educate us and tell us we're all wrong about something you just found out yesterday?
Yes.
So you're coming to be the teacher about something that you're still not even certain about.
Indeed. Yeah, you didn't even know the other name for the ideal gas law, and you didn't know that it only applies in certain circumstances, and it's just a mathematical equation that's used as a rule of thumb. It's not a universally applicable law of physics. The way you're representing it is false.
No, I very clearly stated the additional terms that have to be imposed on it in order to
the
make
Van der
it
Waal thing
applicable.
is you said like there's a couple other things. That's not the only other things. You're leaving others out.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I don't. Do you have another point to make?
Yeah, I feel like I lost the whole point. All I know is Big Tech can't demonstrate his claim, and I think that's
you can't. Well, I mean, if we want to go there, this is one of my favorite things that I experienced with you guys, you flat earther types. You can't demonstrate that you're a human being to me right now. So this idea that I have to be able to demonstrate something, there's a level of credulity that you apply that's like sort of infinite. You can't prove to me that you're not an AI right now.
I'm being good faith to you, man. Like, don't speak for, you can speak for other people, but let me just speak for myself, man. I'm being totally good faith to you. I'm being courteous, and it's easy to get heated in these conversations, but I try to make it a point to be courteous as much as possible. Okay. I'm totally being good faith with you. We may have a disagreement.
I'm talking to the other fellow who just jumped in and said, well, okay, Big Tech can't demonstrate his claims. Okay, well, demonstrate that you're a human being.
We're talking about science, bro.
Hey, Big Tech, let me try this one with you, man, because we're not going to see, I don't think we're going to cede any ground here. Like, and I'm not saying this in any way to put you down. I just think you should read more about the gas laws and learn more about them. That's
I'm
fair
gonna.
For both of us?
I said last night, hey, I discovered a whole new realm that I got to go learn about because you guys are using these terms in this sort of flippant way.
That would be an intellectually honest thing. Can I ask you a question now, since this has all been last night and today all about this question? You imposed me. I ask you a question. Is that fair?
Hit me.
Okay. Do you have any mutually exclusive proof that the Earth is in motion around the sun?
Bro, this is your favorite. Oh my God. Mutually exclusive?
Yeah, a proof that would only work in your model and not in ours.
Dude, with the laughing. All right, you say that you're being courteous and stuff, but then there's just this
focus, Tech. You pulled up with that energy
in here.
I mean, there you go. You have every right to laugh. You have every right to laugh back, but please, like.
Yeah, but if I do that to you, say, "Hey, I'm being courteous."
Tech, focus, Tech. Stop complaining.
I'm not the one that. I'm not the one that laughed, man. Like, just focus on me.
All right, so are you cool with him doing that?
Yes, that's my homie. Focus, Tech.
Yeah, so you want to shut me down and say, "Hey, don't be discouraged."
No, we're giving you the mic. Focus, Tech. Focus, Tech.
Guys, leave him alone. I'm not shutting you down, man. Like, I'm trying to have the conversation. Let's just talk. Like, I can't control other people. I don't want to feed any more energy into distractions. I just want to talk to you. So if I do that, if I address it, it wastes more time. Fair?
The question is, do I have any mutually exclusive proof that the Earth is going around the sun?
Yes.
So we pivoted to heliocentric versus geocentric outside of the curvature of the Earth.
Well, I think that's the most important baseline to establish, because to be fair to you, man, if the Earth is geocentric, right? If we can demonstrate that by itself, you don't even have to get into the flat part to get all the ramifications from it. Flat comes after. That's what I always tell people: do geocentrism first. That's the first step, in my opinion. So that's why I'm asking you that. And I don't want you to run away from this because, so far, even though it's been a little heated, you have been what I would say is intellectually honest. We've had a little bit of a misunderstanding on agreement, but you've been honest. So I expect the same honesty now to my question. Can you answer it?
Do I have any mutually exclusive evidence?
Yeah, you
that
got
the
any
Earth
proof
is
the Earth is moving around the sun? Any proof that would only work in a heliocentric model wouldn't work in any other, like something that would exclusively prove it's moving and wouldn't work in a model in which the Earth's in the center and stationary?
Yeah, no, the relativistic concept, as far as I understand it, is it would be equal if the entire universe was swinging around the Earth. We wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Okay, that dude, I appreciate that answer, dog. Like, you would be
You're
so
welcome.
surprised how hard it is to get people to admit that, because in fact, that's what the physics paradigm requires. It requires there to be an equivalency between a geocentric and a heliocentric model.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I guess your answer is that you don't have any mutually exclusive proof. You're acknowledging that, right? I just want
So
to make sure because I have a question, like
let me
to
ask,
follow up.
I have a follow up too, because
Okay,
this
let's get
begs a
them.
lot of questions. Do you have any
Right.
mutually exclusive proof that when you do a push up, you're not pushing the ground away from you?
Yes.
I'd like to hear that.
Well, technically, I am pushing the ground away from me because of
Ah,
Newton's laws of motion.
so
But
maybe you are the center of the universe. Your body.
well, no, because I
Why
can't
not?
treat myself as a coordinate system that's centered in the universe. It won't hold symmetry. It wouldn't work.
Why not?
However, it wouldn't hold. I mean, the observations won't match. But
Luke, which ones? Maybe
anything
when
to
you
do with the
walk,
sky,
the whole universe moves around you.
no. Um,
No is
we
not an
can
argument.
add when we use kinematics, right, to describe the validity of comparing reference frames, like, am I moving or is that truck moving? Or if you're in a truck, am I moving or is the street moving past me, right? You can use Galilean relativity, just typical kinematic comparison, and say that they would be equivalent. But once you, because we're just talking only about motion, once you introduce forces using dynamics, that's where you can see which one is the actual real frame. So kinematics is one thing. Kinematics is all they have for the sky.
Which
There's no
forces?
real any forces. Like, it depends on the scenario we're talking about.
So what
Um,
forces are causing the universe to go around the Earth?
see, that's a great question.
Right.
We don't know.
Ah.
But just because we don't know doesn't mean that other people who are wrong all of a sudden are
So
right.
what we're doing is deductive versus inductive logic. And is it inductively logically sound to think that all of what we see in the sky is swinging around us? Or is there better logical syllogism that can be stated for the case that we are moving around other things and other
Well,
things are moving around other things, and we are in a system where things are moving around things?
we don't just need logical
Hell,
syllogisms. We have experiments, and the experiments are in
But
our
you can't
favor completely.
experiment anything in space because you don't know what forces are at play.
Can't experiment anything in
You can't
space. Well,
you
first
can't
of
do
all,
experiments with things in the sky because you can't even tell me what forces are being
I
used.
can do experiments here on Earth and prove the Earth's not moving.
But Witsit told me that things in the sky aren't what happens on the ceiling doesn't tell me things that are happening on the ground.
I didn't invoke the sky. I just invoked
But
the
you're
ground. I
doing
said,
experiments on the Earth and then interpolating that to be what's happening in the sky.
okay, if I do an experiment on Earth to show that the Earth is not moving, I haven't brought up the sky at all yet. We're still on Earth. I'm on Earth. I do an experiment on Earth. I
How
say
could you
Earth's
prove
not.
that the Earth's? How could you prove that the Earth's not moving?
Okay, that.
It's
Thank
going
you.
away from you when you do a push-up, so it's moved
I I just
relative
used
to you.
no. A force was imposed upon it. It doesn't mean that it moved.
Yeah, you pushed
You
it
asked
away
me if
with
I'm
your
pushing
arms.
it away. It
You're
doesn't
the
mean that it
center of the
moved.
universe. Prove you're not.
Okay. Okay. Let me. I'm going to finish my thought. I'm not going to
All right.
go into this like nonsense. I'm going to finish it. So when we use experimentation, such as interferometry, such as inductive experiments, we can show that there is no motion of Earth. Therefore, if Earth is not moving and we know it not to be moving, and we look at the sky and we see motion, if we know Earth's not moving but there's motion, what is left to be moving? It would be the sky.
But the interferometry experiment, were you moving?
No.
Okay, so of course there wasn't movement because you're not moving and you're the center of the universe.
I don't even think you understand what an interferometry experiment's doing by asking me that question.
Yeah, I do. It's checking whether or not the light, deviated according to the movement of the Earth. But if you are not moving, so of course it would be the same. If the Earth is relative to you,
The interferometer is not mounted on me; it's mounted on the ground.
yeah, but the ground is mounted on you, and you're the center of the universe, and the ground is stuck to you.
Okay, man. Like, is this your definition of intellectual honesty? Because I can move relative
because
to
if
the
you're going to
ground.
do this with the ground and the Earth, I can do it with you and the ground. It works exactly the same way. Relativity
No,
works
it
exactly.
doesn't.
It literally does. The ground
I
is
can-
stuck to your feet unless you push it away.
I can walk across the ground and be in a different position every second with respect to the ground.
No, the
So,
ground is in a different position respective to you in that circumstance.
I got you.
You're
now.
moving the ground around.
Okay, and if I introduce forces,
The ground is a hamster wheel. The hamster's staying in the same place he's running, but the ground's moving.
Yeah,
That's
you're
you.
talking about kinematics, and once I measure the forces at play, I can tell whether I'm moving or not. So we will know whether I'm moving when I
moving
measure
relative
it.
to what?
Ah, that's a great question.
I know. Once you get all relative like this and you don't know what the center of anything is, you could say everything's moving around you. It works the same way.
Well,
That's my
no,
point.
because interferometry shows absolute motion. It doesn't show relative motion. That's the thing.
Absolute motion of what?
Yep. Motion with respect to absolute space.
Absolute space, which is all centered around you.
It is a coordinate system that is fixed in 3D space, like a grid, and doesn't move.
I can
What?
say
In
All right.
space?
Yeah, it is fixed in 3D space. I'm not talking about outer space, 3D space, like the
Mhm.
universe where we live. It is
Yeah.
fixed in 3D space like a 3-axis grid, and it does not move. It is a fixed absolute reference frame, a
Yeah,
coordinate
but
system
space
for
is
the
stuck to
universe.
you. You are the center of space.
Bro.
And you're the one doing the experiment. So of course you're
I
saying
mean, if you're just gonna troll, like I see that you're deflecting because you don't have answers to the
well, the
questions.
point is that
and
if you're going to call this a troll, then I can call your question to me about the relative motion of the Earth and the
Yo,
sun.
this is why I cut
same
this guy
relative
when he was
motion.
dealing with Witsit, because this is what Witsit had to deal with. It's like, bro, he's just trying to get like a gotcha, and he don't understand how interferometry
Yeah,
works.
there's like a fundamental lack of understanding, and he's pushing it off into like this troll.
No,
behavior.
I'm right, and you're just not even accepting it. I'm not trolling you. Literally, if you are the absolute
No.
reference frame for the universe, then the Earth is, and even the light waves and the ether and everything is relative to you. And so if you're standing still, of course you wouldn't experience movement in the ether or the air or the space or with the interferometry. Of course it would come up that way because you're not moving, because you're
And
standing
if
there
I
doing the
walk,
experiment.
and I have the accelerometer in my pocket or the interferometer in my pocket, and I walk around with it, and all of a sudden I get a friend shift, what does that mean?
That you shifted the universe.
Okay, yeah, and the forces
Because
were
you
imposed on
applied
the,
force.
where did the universe go?
It moved relative to you.
Moved where? Moved within what? Is the universe inside something bigger? You're saying I moved the universe to where? From where to where?
Yeah, around you.
It doesn't make any sense, bro. You're not coherent. And
Forward,
you know
backward,
it.
left,
This is a
right, up, down,
troll.
relative to your body.
Yeah. So, do you have any exclusive evidence that the Earth is in motion around the sun?
Do you have any exclusive evidence that you are not the center of the universe?
Yeah, I just gave it to you.
You didn't.
Please take me around misery.
Yeah.
Now, my
Okay.
point is that your question is absurd at the same level that the question I asked you.
No, it is a very valid.
No, because all we
scientific
have,
question.
I said that what we
It
have
is
is
a-
deductive logic and we have inductive logic, and we apply it. Do you understand the difference between deductive and inductive?
So, do you have any exclusive evidence that the Earth is in motion around the sun? Is it? I mean,
The
it's a
same
yes
amount-
or a no.
Yeah, I already agreed with you.
So, yeah, the answer is
We
no.
wouldn't be able to
Okay.
tell, so we have to appeal to inductive logic.
We would
And
be able
science
to
is built
tell
on
when we
logic.
measure forces. That's why we have to go to dynamics. That's what I'm telling you. We know. We are
But those
able
forces
to
are
tell.
still all relative to a perspective.
No, they're not. That's why I'm telling you, you don't understand the experiments, or you haven't looked into them to know enough about them yet to say that, because they don't show
You can
relative
just
motion.
state
They
that,
show
but you haven't
absolute
proved it.
motion. Well, I
Absolute relative
encourage
to
you.
what?
I encourage. That's the point. Absolute motion is not relative to anything. It's relative to absolute space. There's not a arbitrary coordinate system that you define it relative to. You define it relative to fixed space itself, which also happens to match the Earth frame, which shows that the Earth is the stationary frame in the universe and everything moves around it.
You're deducing or inducing absolute fixed space based on an observation with light.
Not just light.
What other kind of interferometry is there?
Well, it's not only interferometry that shows it.
What's the other thing?
Were you in the space last night? We talked about the Faraday induction paradox. We talked about induction electromotive forces. Using
let's do
magnets.
this real quick, Piezo, because I do want to.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to go into that topic. I was just telling. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, you good. Hey, big tech.
See, I just want to say, like, I came in, I asked about maps.
Hold on.
I asked about gas, and then it's like, do you have proof that the Earth doesn't go around?
Hold on. I don't know why everybody gets so disrespectful when a host opens their mic. It's like motherfuckers got no respect when I let them on my stage. It's crazy.
Because
And then if I get to muting them, then when I get to muting them and I get to taking their mic, then they go to run to the timeline and cry like babies, right? Instead of them just having some respect for the host. They won't go to nobody else's space and do that though, right? He won't go to nobody else's space.
Well, you're rude.
Like
what
that.
You just did was rude.
You should just mute up, bro. When a host interjects, you show the
well,
respect.
It was rude, so
you should just mute up.
Nah.
You should just mute up.
Nah.
No, I mean, you will never get a mic over here again.
I could be rude. We can all be rude. Let's all be rude.
Me interjecting because I let you just ramble on about shit that you don't understand is me being rude.
Yeah.
You literally have zero respect. So this is what I'm gonna do.
No, that's not true.
Can
that's
you show? Can you show? See, that's
respect.
what I'm saying. You about to get cooked right now. Now I'm about to cook your ass. So if you put an interferometry,
be rude to my ass. Come on, nigga, be rude to me.
What did you just say?
What?
Did you just say the N word, bro?
Nah, nigga, I wouldn't say that shit.
All right, so this what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep him up here, and he's never coming back up here again. No. Keep the mic open. He's never coming back up here again. Big Tech, if you put an interferometry on your body, if you put an interferometry,
right
you're racist. Yeah, you're a racist. Hey, Big Tech, when you put an interferometer on your body and you move, walking in a straight line or walking on a curved surface, and then you put the interferometry on the ground, and then you walk and you move, and now you want to run away. Now you want to run away because you know I was about to cook your ass. You would not get the same friendship. If you did get the same friendship where that interferometer was on your body and you was in motion, and then you put the interferometer on the ground and then you walked away, if that were to get the same friendship, then you couldn't invoke relative motion, but you wouldn't get the same friendship. So I just cooked your ass. You just rage quick. You ain't shit. You will never be back in Flat Earth Fridays again. We will make sure that everybody on the timeline gets this clip. Just because that this shit ain't recorded, don't you ever think that we won't get to exposing your ass. This is the weird shit that we get from globe earthers. Thank you for demonstrating that too, because they stay saying that it's flat earthers that racist. Hey, Proud, we are for sure gonna highlight this type of shit from the globe earthers. Thank you, Big Tech. Thank you. Ralph, you seen it? What other globe earthers in here? Ralph, you better tweet about this shit too, because you be trolling everybody on the timeline with flat earth and stuff. You better tweet about that. You seen this globe earther in here being racist as hell, thinking that shit is funny as hell. You better tweet about this shit, Ralph.
GA is racist.
You better tweet about this shit, Ralph. I better not see you act like you ain't seen nothing. Don't be closing your eyes. You better run. You better run straight to the timeline and say, yo, that Big Tech dude right there. Yo, Ralph, I'm dead serious.
We stand for that shit, Ralph.
You literally
you smarter than that.
Dead ass, bro. Dead ass. You know where you come from.
And tweet about it. Do it.
Make sure you tweet about this shit, Ralph.
Okay, you're tripping on him because what he used the GA.
Man, I'm just saying, make sure you tweet about it. You like to troll. Make sure you tweet about it. You know where we from, Ralph. You know where we from, Ralph. You know where we from, Ralph. You know where we from. You better get the tweet about this shit. I bet when I go to your timeline tomorrow, I better see that shit. Cause we gonna highlight this shit too. Don't act like you ain't see that.
time when you ask him that. I guess have to start asking that to everybody that comes in, dog. But I'm sorry he talked to you like that, dog. I know it just bounced off your chest, but that's crazy. That's wild. So
Hey, Pizza, well
Cannot
done,
believe
bro.
that shit, bro.
Really good
I
job, Pizza.
cannot believe that, yo. I literally cannot believe that. Literally.
When he said
Yo,
Pizza,
we're gonna
was it-
embarrass this man,
he's got
bro.
an audience too. He's got like a kick channel, man. Like he's
Yo, we're gonna embarrass this man. I swear to y'all, we are going to embarrass him.
Oh man.
Dead ass, yo. I'm not playing. Yo, we finna end this off because the energy been real weird. Like I'm about done with all of this. Piezo, I appreciate you doing that back and forth. To the audience, I apologize. I wasn't gonna let that affect my emotions for real, so I didn't remove him. Y'all seen it for yourself. But this is the type of shit that we get from the real anti-flat earthers. This is the shit. So don't be letting them gaslight y'all like the flat earthers are racist. That's projection right there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
take care, man. Thank you.
Peace out, Piezo. Appreciate you, brother.
Later, bro. Well done.
That shit is crazy, yo. That shit is so crazy. I'm gonna make sure that his whole audience know that.
Well, just so you know, his audience, he came from what is called the Nick Fuentes Groyper group, and they're race, quote unquote, race realists, and they kicked him out because he's full of shit. So when you got people who are race realists, quote unquote, used to dropping the N-bombs, kick you out because you're full of shit, you don't got nowhere to go. So he's one of those edgy guys who wanted to be cool and don't have a place to go. So he's trying to make a name for himself, clout chasing here, there, anywhere he can find. So a loser. This will be an interesting clip.
He might be glitching, but
My bad. I was glitching out.
Man, I jumped in during the evolution conversation, and I've been, just so Harley knows, I've been sitting here for a few hours. No biggie, but it happens. Donkey. But man, that shit got wild just now. But that's what I'm talking about last week. Sacred, you let these fools cook until they just get a little too ignorant, and then got to shut them down. But man, this thing took a couple wild turns. I was trying to take some notes. JT told me to take some notes. I mean, I got a whole page of scribble scrabble on it. But homeschool your kids, y'all. That's all I got to say. Get them out of this nonsense.
who's next? Did Ralph drop down?
I can say something about how the Earth is fixed, the flat Earth.
I was going to say something on the topic that we were just talking about, if you guys don't mind, real quick.
Yeah, jump in. We're about to head out anyway, so.
Yeah, if you're closing out, it's too bad Big Tech embarrassed himself like that because, you know, he's like one of those guys that like is like the atypical jock kind of like, you know, I'm a cool guy. You know, he's articulate and he can actually, you know, get the concepts. And one of the ones he was bringing up, you know, it's too bad because then he started trolling and just go into this like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, reference frames, you know, we can't prove it either way. And he just like, so he declined down to the very bottom, obviously, just to you know, ad hom bullshit. And it's too bad because that's what those guys get reduced to when they try to defend the globe model. That's what they're left with because there is no defense for it. There absolutely is not. But the atmosphere thing, I was going to jump in, of course, and talk to him about his concept with the atmosphere and everything going downwards, because you have to not only imagine that everything's being pulled downwards, then you have to imagine that it's also rotating, right? And this is where we get into the whole plane argument that I always go to, because they have to imagine that everything's being, you know, pulled towards the surface, but then also rotating with the surface in exact unison. And so it's creating a dynamic system, but then statically moving it, which is a, you know, complete violation of the laws of conservation of energy to begin with. And it's too bad because, you know, I would like to hear him try to wiggle out of that, because it directly contradicts his whole downward movement of the mass of the gases. Also, I posted the Brenner comp that talks about the gases, because he even said himself that the gases are moving freely. You know, the molecules of gas, they don't have any kind of connection to each other. But the way they have to treat the Earth model with the rotation is that they're statically held in relation to each other with the rotation. And they say that the atmosphere or the wind patterns are caused by the difference between the atmosphere rotation and the Earth rotation, right? So they're saying that the atmosphere's lack of being in sync with the Earth, because they can't even claim lockstep anyway, because there's, you know, they'll admit that the laws of fluid dynamics won't allow it to be in perfect sync. So they're saying that the atmosphere not being in sync is what's causing the wind patterns, but the atmosphere itself is also rotating everything held statically in perfect relation to each other, not changing as it rotates. So that doesn't work. You can't be causing it and rotating it in static relation to everything at the same time. So it's just that the rotation kills it. And then if you get into the whole plane thing, then you'd have to imagine that the plane is being rotated with the atmosphere perfectly, so much so that the pilot has no idea that that's happening. It's just this eastward vector that happens in the background that the pilot has no idea is even occurring. We just have to assume it. We have to imagine it. And that's where we get the breakdown of the kinematics versus the dynamics, which is what Big Tech was talking about too. He's saying it's just a formula for the ideal gas law, and that he's right. Maybe it is a kinematic idea, but there's certain times that it can be applied to figure certain things out.